Your revolutionary idea isn't even worth the 3 minutes you've wasted of our time." The words cut through the prestigious presentation hall like a blade, leaving silence in their wake. 200 of tech's most powerful players shifted uncomfortably in their custom Italian leather chairs, their collective gaze moving between the young man at the podium and the smirking investor who had just dismissed him so casually. Marcus Chen's hands trembled slightly against the simple flash drive he held, a drive containing 3 years of his life's work. The 70-story view of Manhattan's skyline stretched behind him through floor-to-ceiling windows, a backdrop that should have been inspiring, but now felt like it was mocking his presence. The elite crowd before him wore watches worth more than his annual salary, their attention already drifting to their phones, to their neighbors, to anywhere but the nobody who dared to think he belonged in their world. From the back of the room, a figure in a black Tesla jacket observed the scene with growing interest. He hadn't planned to attend this particular innovation showcase, but something about the young scientist's pitch had caught his attention before the interruption. Unlike the others, his eyes hadn't left Marcus, and his expression had shifted from casual observation to focused intensity. As the event organizer began to usher Marcus off the stage, Elon Musk slowly reached for his phone, already knowing this would be a day Silicon Valley would remember. Marcus felt his world contracting, each heartbeat echoing in his ears as he stepped away from the podium. The prototype designs on the massive display screen behind him, revolutionary atmospheric water harvesting technology that could help millions, faded to black with a casual click from the tech coordinator. 3 years of research, countless sleepless nights in his tiny apartment-turned-lab, and all his savings had led to this moment, only to be dismissed in seconds by men who spent more on their lunch than he did on monthly rent. The worst part wasn't the rejection. He'd faced plenty of those before. It was the laughter, the subtle chuckles spreading through the crowd like a virus, the knowing looks that seemed to say, "Did this kid really think he belonged here?" The event organizer, James Sterling, adjusted his Patek Philippe watch with practiced nonchalance as he retook the stage. His $12,000 suit and perfectly styled silver hair practically radiated authority as he addressed the crowd. "Let's maintain our standards, shall we?" His smile was pure Silicon Valley, all teeth and no warmth. Next up, we have Clearview Technologies presenting their enhanced reality interface. The audience straightened in their seats, phones disappearing, as a sleek team in matching blazers approached the stage. This was more their speed, polished, professional, backed by the right schools and the right investors. The message was clear. Innovation had a dress code, and Marcus's off-the-rack suit hadn't made the cut. But something was happening in the back of the room. Elon Musk had pulled up Marcus's presentation on his phone, eyes narrowing as he studied the technical specifications. His fingers moved rapidly across the screen, cross-referencing data points, running quick calculations. The man who had revolutionized electric vehicles, space travel, and neural interfaces saw something in those dismissed designs that the others had been too quick to judge. He glanced at the Clearview team now commanding everyone's attention with their slick animations and buzzword-heavy pitch, then back at Marcus, who was quietly packing his laptop into a worn backpack. The contrast couldn't have been starker or more telling. As Marcus headed for the door, a message was already being typed that would change everything. "Don't leave. Trust me. E." Marcus's phone buzzed just as his hand touched the door handle. The message preview made him freeze. "Don't leave. Trust me. E." His mind raced. It couldn't be who he thought it was. But as he turned back toward the presentation hall, he caught the subtle nod from the figure in the Tesla jacket, the same figure who'd challenged the entire automotive industry's assumptions about electric vehicles. The same figure who'd made reusable rockets a reality when everyone said it was impossible. The blood pounding in Marcus's ears grew louder as Elon Musk rose from his seat, drawing every eye in the room. Even the Clearview team's polished presentation faltered as their audience's attention shifted to the back of the hall. James Sterling's practiced smile twitched slightly as Musk made his way forward. This wasn't part of the program. These showcases ran on strict schedules, carefully curated to maintain the proper image of innovation. Safe, predictable, properly backed by the right people and the right money. The whispers started immediately. Phones emerged again, but this time to capture whatever was about to happen. The Clearview team stood frozen mid-presentation, their sleek graphics continuing to play behind them like a forgotten television show. "Mr. Musk," Sterling started, his voice carrying that particular tone of someone used to being the most important person in the room, "we're in the middle of a mistake." Musk's voice wasn't particularly loud, but it carried the weight of someone who had repeatedly changed the world. He reached the podium, gesturing for Marcus to join him. The young scientist moved forward, as if in a dream, aware of every eye tracking his movement, of the sudden shift in the room's energy. "I've just run some preliminary calculations on this atmospheric water harvesting system." Musk tapped his phone. And suddenly, Marcus's technical specifications reappeared on the main screen. The efficiency rates, if these numbers are accurate, would represent a quantum leap forward in water accessibility technology. The room had transformed. The same people who had been checking emails or suppressing yawns minutes ago were now leaning forward in their chairs. Phones were recording every word. Sterling stood to the side, his authority evaporating as Musk, with the casual confidence of someone who had revolutionized multiple industries, began breaking down the technical brilliance of Marcus's design. The integration of nanomaterial surfaces with this particular atmospheric flow pattern, it's elegant, simple, in the way that truly revolutionary ideas often are. He turned to Marcus. "Walk us through the power consumption metrics again. I have some thoughts on potential Tesla battery integration that could make this even more efficient." Marcus felt the weight of the moment. His hands had stopped shaking. The condescending laughter from earlier had been replaced by intense focus, by the scratching of pens on premium notepads, by the rapid typing of messages to investment committees. But more importantly, he saw in Musk's eyes what he'd always seen in his own reflection: the pure, unrestrained excitement of someone recognizing a genuine leap forward in human capability. As he began explaining his work again, his voice was steady, passionate, and this time, no one dared interrupt him. For the next 15 minutes, the 70-story presentation hall transformed into something entirely different from the sterile showcase of safe investments it had been designed to be. It became what every innovation space should be, a place where ideas were judged solely on their merit, where passion met possibility. Marcus and Elon Musk stood side by side at the massive display screen, diving deep into the technical specifications that the room had dismissed minutes earlier. The young scientist's eyes lit up as Musk suggested modifications to the power distribution system, his hands moving animatedly as he explained how he'd solved the condensation efficiency problems that had plagued similar attempts at atmospheric water harvesting. The audience that had laughed at him earlier now watched in stunned silence as two minds, separated by billions in net worth but united by genuine innovation, built upon each other's ideas in real time. Even James Sterling had stopped checking his watch, his carefully curated schedule forgotten, as he witnessed something raw and real breaking through the polished veneer of his tech showcase. The Clearview team had quietly taken seats in the front row, their own presentation forgotten as they watched their entire understanding of innovation hierarchy crumble in real time. "This is why I came here today," Musk suddenly announced, turning to address the room. His voice carried the weight of someone who had repeatedly bet against conventional wisdom and won. Not for another round of safe, focus-grouped products designed to attract Series A funding. I came looking for exactly this, someone crazy enough to tackle a fundamental human problem in a way no one else had considered. He gestured at Marcus's technical drawings. You all laughed because his suit was off the rack, because he didn't have the right schools or investors listed in his bio. I'm looking at these designs and I see early SpaceX, early Tesla. I see someone who didn't get the memo that this was supposed to be impossible. The tension in the room was palpable as Musk pulled out his phone again. The audience held their collective breath, hundreds of millions in investment capital represented in that single moment of anticipation. Mr. Chen, Musk's voice carried clearly through the now silent hall, I'd like to offer you full development backing through Tesla's Environmental Initiatives program, full creative control, access to our engineering teams and facilities. He paused, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. And I think we can do better than 3 minutes for your next presentation. The room erupted. The same investors who had dismissed Marcus were now pushing forward, business cards extended, voices climbing over each other with offers of partnership opportunities and synergistic collaborations. But Marcus stood rooted in place, looking at the man who had just changed his life with the same attention to detail that he'd given his neglected designs. In that moment, surrounded by the chaos of sudden validation, Marcus understood something profound about true innovation and the people who made it possible. In the aftermath of Musk's announcement, the prestigious presentation hall had become a whirlwind of activity. Investors who couldn't be bothered to look up from their phones earlier now pressed their cards into Marcus's hands with practiced urgency. James Sterling, ever the professional, had somehow materialized beside them with talk of special development partnerships and exclusive showcase opportunities. But Marcus barely registered any of it. His attention was fixed on the simple flash drive in his hand, the one that had carried 3 years of his dreams, dismissed and validated all in the span of an hour. They'll all claim they saw it first now, Musk said quietly, watching the scene with knowing amusement. The billionaire's expression carried the weight of someone who had walked this path before, who had stood alone against rooms full of doubters and emerged vindicated. But remember this moment, Marcus. Innovation doesn't come from comfortable boardrooms or safe investments. It comes from people crazy enough to keep working when everyone else says it's impossible. He gestured toward the crowd of suddenly enthusiastic investors. These people don't build the future. They just bet on it once someone else proves it's possible. The next day, as videos of the encounter spread across social media like wildfire, the story transformed into something larger than a simple tech presentation gone wrong. Comment sections filled with similar stories of dismissed innovations and overlooked genius, of gatekeepers and breakthrough moments. Marcus's atmospheric water harvesting technology became a symbol of something everyone could recognize, the moment when passion and persistence finally break through the walls of established power. 6 months later, as the first prototype installation brought clean water to a drought-stricken community in East Africa, Marcus stood again in front of cameras and investors. But this time was different. His suit was still off the rack, his presentation still driven by pure passion rather than polished pitch decks. The difference was in his eyes. They carried the quiet confidence of someone who had learned that true innovation doesn't ask for permission from the gatekeepers. As he began his presentation, somewhere in the back of the room, a figure in a black Tesla jacket smiled, knowing that today the world would see not just a new technology, but a reminder that the future belongs to those brave enough to imagine it differently.